Hi, I'm Britton LaRue, and this is Moon to Moon. Moon to Moon is a space to consider, celebrate, and share the ways we come home to ourselves, anchor through change, and uncover our power. 1 month, one phase, one loving step at a time. Hello, Moon to Moon. I'm really excited to sit down and share this episode with you. This one is going to be along that series where I've been contemplating these different chapters of my career. And the purpose of that is because reviewing is fun. This is the thing that I like doing with my journal is at the ends of cycles, at the ends of lunar cycles, at solar returns, at the new year, at the beginning of a season, I love to look back. And so what is like the close of a cycle that I'm looking back from in this series? It's because I reached 7 years in my business. And 7 years is a Saturn cycle because it's a Saturn square. So my first client was spring 2018. I started this series in spring of 2025. That's 7 years. And it's allowing me to look back from first ever client in astrology, like never having had any ties to this business landscape, had no entrepreneurial background whatsoever, had never been in sales. I'd always been a teacher and always in academia, although it is fascinating that right out of college, I worked 8 or 9 months at an advertising agency, which is how I had the connection to my boyfriend, my partner. He's my husband, except he's not my husband. Husband, not husband. Matt. I was like assigned to his team as like a lowly intern. And I'm like, oh, I understand why I had that weird pivot. It's like it created the conditions for us to meet again at our mystical midlives. So I can't say I never worked in marketing because there actually was a little window there, even though mostly what I did was like take notes at meetings and make sure that we followed up on things. So 7 years, I'm looking back to celebrate it. And I'm also looking back to see like when I come in with my big net, like what wisdom can we gather together to support you, listener, to support anyone out there who is like building something out from very little experience, and even more than that, like very little external validation, going into a taboo professional field with like a lot of invalidation energy over culturally. I did not have a background of being like counterculture. Really just like 8th grade, 9th grade. And then, I don't know, it was really hard for my mom. So I basically just quit my countercultural nature until midlife. And I only would let my counterculture nature come out in in my studies, because I was like very edgy in my research. So at midlife, I jumped into this countercultural career, 0 family support, 0 friend support, except for there's some exceptions there. But it's kind of wild. Like it's miraculous in many ways to me that I hopped into this new life path and built it out according, like, from my dream field. And it landed, pretty quickly. And so I think it's really fascinating to just look at, like, what all I was learning, bumping up against, like the things I was, like, really taking to my altar, like taking these questions, taking this pain, taking this yearning, taking this shame to my altar for support. I just looked down. I looked down at my phone. There was a funny message from Matt because he's sad I'm not there. I told him I'm having fun by myself, so I'm going to be late. Oh, funny. As I was saying, yes, it's miraculous when we sweet humans, against all the odds of, like, really taking something that sounds delusional to other people, like a fool's path, and just taking it anyway, just taking it anyway. So I've been sitting with my journals to remember the chapter we're going to be covering today. So the first episode I shared with you was called The Quickening, and I was sharing, like, what was going on under the surface before I had an external move, that being my first client, before I was like, universe, I'm ready. I want to do this. And that episode's really important because the various, like, ritual practices and habits and ways of holding myself that were set into motion then are ongoing through everything else that we're discussing here. They're all happening behind the scenes, from the running practice to the orgasm practice to the lunar practices to continuing my studies with intuitive healing, to continue my studies with astrology and the tarot, and turning to teachers to invest in so that I can invest in myself. All of that's still happening in the chapter that we're discussing today, as well as all other chapters, because they continue to be so important to me. So the next chapter that we looked at was the first year and a half, which I think is pretty miraculous because it's going from first client ever with no, like, connections in the community. I got the first client from a connection in the sense that it was from my intuitive healing teacher that this client was recommended to me. And she's one of the only people that I told that I wanted to do this. So that was not local and not a local client. I think she was living in New York City. And so from the beginning, I was doing distance and also asynchronous. But by the time that chapter ended a year and a half later, I was now in a place where I had put some workshops out. I had a newsletter following. I had an Instagram following. And I had a busy client life. I'd had some publicity. And most importantly, I put out the first offering that, like, really, really came from a Britain place. And that's a phrasing that I use for for all of us, like when we come from a true voice, when we come from like this deep voice within us, that is, it's clear because like distortions have been removed. Other people's voices have been removed. And we can't just get there first. You have to just begin using your voice, i.e. participating in the world, participating in the marketplace, participating in exchanges, participating in reciprocity, letting yourself be seen in the midst of your gifts, delivering your gifts, even if you're doing so while knowing you haven't quite found your own voice. You haven't quite fully landed in the you thing yet. It's like, would you rather be certain or would you rather be amazed? Just be amazed at how it's going to happen at some point. Would you rather participate or would you rather be perfect? If you want to be perfect in your voice, you're probably going to not participate, because in order to get into your voice, you're going to need to participate imperfectly, These are all like some of the deep, hard things for us humans. Compassion for us, we've been so conditioned that we have to be perfect. So, and I mean, I had just going through my journals, like so much of what I'm talking about in the first few years of my business is just like mom stuff, it's like the conditioning of my academic training that made me so afraid that I could speak imperfectly and be called out, like the deep engagement every lunar cycle. And I'm not talking about just new moons. I'm talking about all the phases, every phase in just deep, deep ritual, like full blown on the floor, candles lit ritual facing east with the moon, with any goddesses that are present, with my guides, hear me, hear me. Yeah, like all of this growth was happening because of the alchemy of the healing that was happening. And just my willingness to just be on my knees with humility and to release like the expertise programming, to release this perfectionism programming, to release my snobbiness. I just knew I had so many distortions that were making me more like uptight around what was guarding what was behind me, as in within me, which is this like wild, wild witch. So I turned to the moon and I turned to Hecate and I turned to support from the other side. And like very studious with my transits back then too. Like reading these journals, I was way more like closely studying transits than I do now. That was just part of like my like attention paying. I was paying such close attention to the transits, just trying to understand and create as much data as possible around like, so they tell me that Mercury is this, but I want to be with the data daily and like noting all data so closely with the transits so I could have my own information. So, yeah. The last episode then was called like all the nitty-gritty details of the first 18 months of my business. That was some scrappy times, really scrappy. And one of the big things there for like very beginners is just like willingness to be a fool, willingness to be an imposter, willingness to go to the edges of your taboo self. Like, who do you think you're not allowed to be? Go be that. That was just like what I was living. And it was bringing me results. The data came back to me. Like, much, couldn't argue with the data. The data was, this is working, Not always, though. There were a lot of pivots. A lot of times where I would try something and like, I don't know. Let's do a different thing. Lots of unsubscribes. You're always going to have unsubscribes, You're always going to have followers who decide to unfollow. So back then, my such a core thing was getting my body and nervous system to just learn how to not have my day ruined by that kind of information. Because it's like, whoa. If my body thinks that I'm going to lose a whole day over things like this, it would make sense then that I would create conditions to not grow or not expand. So thus, what I'm learning here is that if I really, really, really want growing, then I gotta really spend a lot of time with my nervous system. I gotta really spend a lot of time with my inner children, because those are the parts of me that are very frightened by what I'm doing and feel like I'm just putting my face into what abandonment and rejection and failure feel like. But a larger me is like, this is not abandonment, rejection, and failure. Like, you're growing. And so we can only grow at the pace of our most scared parts, So for me, the really important thing in this time was learning how to be with those parts of me. And those are the parts of me I would take to the moon and to my ritual spaces to formalize the practice of holding them and to get support from something beyond myself, which is a thing that we can do. Like, it's not extractive when we come to the moon for relationship, when we come to the moon to be in loving relationship, when we come to the moon being willing to listen. The moon responds. Moon's very responsive. When we come humbly wanting this relationship, which means listening. So from all that listening, and holding my parts, I was learning how to have a much more like stabilized basin of a body that could hold the cauldron of my voice and without freaking out, that like, oh, danger, danger, danger. We can't speak that voice. We can't speak that voice. Just like learning to trust that I can hold it with the support of the earth. The earth is helping me hold this voice. I am surrounded by support. And so it was in the fall then of 2019, a year and a half after my first client, that I put out the Medicine of Autumn, which I got weepy in that last episode as I came to it and just like it really hit me hard. What a big moment that was, that came out. I just saw my journal. I charged $22 for it. It's not like, whoa, 11 people did it in the Libra month. So like, that was not going to pay my bills. Doesn't matter. It did eventually, because I knew I hit something there. And I kept going, even though at present, I wasn't really making a lot of money. I was hearing from people like, that was amazing. I want the October one. I want the November one. Please tell me that you're doing a medicine of winter. Yes, I am. The other huge thing that fall, it was big, is I did a webinar called Witch, just like publicly being seen doing this, attaching my face to that word, and basically saying like, I'm not pretending that I've been doing this for years. I'm actually coming to you as a beginner to share like how amazing this has been for me to really claim this word. Would anyone like to hear me share that? It probably charged like $15. People came. And after that, I had multiple people tell me, have you ever thought about starting a podcast? So the seed started to get planted. And then a huge thing that fall is I decided I didn't want to go by working with your wheel anymore, which is what I'd called my business. And it's so cute because in my journal, you can just see pages and pages and pages of me tinkering with other names. And what I was going to do, there was Alchemysterium. That was a big one. I even had really cool drawings for it. One was Mother of Scorpio. But it just kept being wrong. And it was actually a Mercury retrograde in Scorpio that peeled the name back. The skin peeled off and I saw the name Britton LaRue, my own name. It was a wild Mercury retrograde learning. Mercury just how about this though? You are the one who has the name. The name is already here. And at the time it was me, nobody knows that doesn't mean anything. Britton LaRue doesn't mean anything. BrittonLaRue.com, and what even is that? But this thing I went through with Mercury, it was just helping me see this reality of you make this your reality. You decide Britton LaRue is a thing and make it a thing. Claim it. It was I remember making a post with the skin peeling back, and the skin was called Princess and the snake coming forward was called Queen. And I played with a bunch like that. Just what was falling off of me is just aspects of me that felt unable to claim it, claim crowns, claim scepters. The scepter of what? Your own life. Your own creative practice, being the cauldron of yourself. I mean, it's just so sweet to remember that that was a torturous growth phase. It felt like I was being cooked in a crucible to get there. And then I did. And then I was I'll take the name, in Neverending Story, they're he has to give me a new name. And Sebastian's no, why me? He doesn't understand. Da 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 da. We just watched that on my birthday this year. Okay. And so then it everything's starting to ramp up now. And I can tell you, looking back, what it was. I was ramping up into aura building. Because this is going to be the theme of the next Mystics Making Money. It's going to be on power, visibility, and leadership. And this is where I want to talk to everyone about what I've learned about business as about being about aura. Your business has an aura, and growing your aura is a really important thing if you want people to see you. So this is the phase of my life where I was in aura building, and part of that was claiming my name. The next thing was I had a student who wanted to hang out with me locally and talk biz ideas. And was a artist and creative director of her own creative agency. And that is, of course, Angela George, who I hired then to make my logo, which became the Ouroboros around my name, based on a bunch of art that I sent her from the turn of the century Europe that had been what I was studying in my graduate school program, Fin de siècle, Art Nouveau. And then I told her how I had this PDF from a Word doc the year before for seeding the year 2019, and I wanted to do it. I did it for 2019, and now I wanted to do it for 2020. And she's like, would you want it to be a pretty physical booklet? I could design it out for you, and then we could have it printed, and then you could ship it to your community. And it was like, what? What? Physical booklets? Like, that's a thing that's possible? So this like expanded my imagination. And I really did not have the money, except I clearly did. But we have this idea, I have no money. We say I have no money when we do. We do actually. I did pay her money I thought I didn't have. And I did actually invest in that logo. And I invested in her to design those workbooks for me. And then that turned into investing in a booklet for a Pisces workshop, which then became the Living the Signs workbooks and the Moon to Moon workbooks, which I created all of 2020 with Angela. And like investing in this money that some part of me did not believe that I had, but I actually did have, was what built my aura. Because getting that all, like, I couldn't have picked that logo until that point in my career. Like, I really had to come to that scepter claiming, like, it's my fucking name, to like really be ready to do the logo. If I had the money a year before, it wouldn't have been the right timing. Like, I'm glad I didn't fuss with logo first. I waited to do the logo once I was like amped up in like my own life force energy around like logo now, and it was like a spell from my own cauldron. It was like coming from my voice, like this, and you're the one I trust you to help me with this. And we made it so, and those workbooks, I've spent from January 2020 through October, November 2020 doing all the signs plus Moon to Moon. They're all like 120 to 190 pages. I wrote each one in a week and then sent it back to her. She dropped it into I had to have like a week off, and then I'd have a week to edit the entire thing, and then we'd do another round of edits, and then another round of edits, and then they went out. So I was furiously cooking shit up in the cauldron basin of my voice based on medicine of autumn and medicine of winter. I just put it out into like something that people could hold. And I had always studied artist books, so I really love the idea of these portable objects that people can mark up and take into bed with them and to throw in their like bag when they go to get coffee or go to the beach or whatever. I didn't need them to be so aesthetically glorious, but Angela is like such a profound, like visualizer of the heart of the word, so that the books became as beautiful as the content, and that was a powerful thing. So, a lesson there is just like, when you are feeling in your voice, as you feel in your voice, go big with it, like spread it around. Be risky as you invest in yourself, because, and then trust it. Like, you can't do it if you're going to second guess it. I decided to do it, and then I leapt like in the inevitability that like this was the best choice I've ever made in my life. And I can't wait to find out how the world is going to throw that back to show me how it was. So, yeah. And so after the Seeding the Year workbook for 2020, then we had the one every few weeks I was working on a new book, and while I was also promoting the one for the sign season we were coming into. And I was working with the deadlines of the zodiac to make sure that everybody could have their Cancer book at the start of Cancer season who wanted one. And so the process of promoting that, like 1 month at a time, was like such a building experience. And that building experience was like gaining a ton of momentum. And like people were really cheering me on. And people were really getting into the project of like, oh my God, I can't believe she's doing this, Oh my God, another one? What's the next cover going to be like? Meanwhile, I'm holding these living the signs workshops that are like donation, $20, come and I'll teach the kinds of stuff that are in the book. It was all raising awareness for the project while also creating intimacy and creating opportunities for people to be with me and feel my voice and feel my body. And so many of those people are still in my community, still coming into my spaces, the people that I met doing the Living the Signs workshops in 2020. Of course, in 2020, we had COVID. And within days of quarantine beginning, I started this podcast. So that was another like aura building move. I had been told by many people, you should start a podcast. And I was like, I'm going to do, instead of Medicine of Spring, I'm going to pour everything that would have been in Medicine of Spring into this podcast and more. And I just like opened my mouth and let it go. And was just like, I'm not going to care about listener counts. I'm not going to promote if I don't feel like it. I'm not going to record if I don't feel like it. This entire space is going to be for me to be tapped into the pleasure of sharing from myself. And that is why it's worth it, Like, I've really brought to it like this big desire to just support myself and to let my voice rip into this ecosystems, into the fields. And just completely released it from like needing to prove anything to me, just like I did with the books. I mean, I wasn't thinking about the books as things that are going to make me a bunch of money. I wasn't thinking about the books in terms of like what that work is going to get me. I was always focused on the pleasure of doing it. Like, it's the pleasure of doing it. That's why I'm doing it. And if someone's enjoying it, that's so fucking cool. Wow. It's like miraculous the way we can connect to each other through podcasts. But there was no pressure on it. And even today, like, I'm very protective about keeping the podcast space like free from like the energetics of like, is this a success or not? Because of course it's a success. I enjoy doing it, and I know that I'm sure there are things strategically that I could implement to like get more listeners. But I really just love for it to be a space where I can communicate what is on my heart to communicate, which is often related to the courses that I'm upcoming going to serve, because that's where I am. Like, I'm holding them. So let me share you how I'm holding them. And whether you come into the class or not, I know there's going to be something impactful here, because it's impactful to me. And we're not isolated. Everything's connected. I just saw this cool Bjork interview where she was saying, if you do something to please nobody else, there's a small chance that you will please everyone. And if you do things to please 1 to 10 people, there's a very high chance you'll please no one. And it was like, yes, that. So like, I'm talking about aura building into 2020 now, right? Like, okay, so the day of the new year of 2020, knowing the astrology that was coming, feeling the collective energy, feeling what was going to be asked of me of 2020, I went back to bed by noon, just like overwhelmed at the beginning of 2020. Like, oh my God, I don't know that I want to be in this year. But like, honestly, I had been so deep in alchemy for myself that there were aspects of the collective experience that I was like, as hard as this is, as painful as this is, as violent as this is, as grotesque as what we're seeing come forward is, in so many ways, we need this alchemy. We humans, we need this. I'm here for it. I'm here for it. I want to participate in what is it that COVID is bringing us to understand. I want to be part of that. And so I just ferociously created and shared. Just created and shared, created and shared, created and shared, created and shared. Within weeks of quarantine started, I announced my first year-long teaching container, Charting Your Course. And 2 of my students from that year are now faculty in Emergence Astrology Year 2, Jonathan Coe and Mariola Rosario. For a whole year, we were also intimate together, and I was learning how astrology wants to move through me as a teacher and a guide and a speaker of astrology. Through the dream of that class was about charting your course. It was about wayfinding and way showing and navigation, and like really listening to the navigational possibilities that astrology can offer us. What I didn't realize as I got into it, though, is that what I would end up teaching was not what you would think it would be, because I was landing into some other kind of astrology in the teaching of it. I couldn't have known when I started. I just set the dream into motion, and then it started to reveal itself from the showing up. So then, by the time we got to fall of that year, I really felt so huge from the experience of putting those books out and my podcast and my course, and just seeing the effects that my teaching was having on my students. It was like, Britton, are you going to notice the impacts? Are you going to turn away and pretend it's not happening? Are we learning to hold sensation? Are we learning to hold sensation? So really, in my fullness, I had my first photography shoot in the fall of 2020. And that was like a huge aura building experience, because I had never had any professional photography done. And so having this photography and like having people on set who were like making sure my hair's in the right place and like taking care of me so that these photos look amazing. It was such a wildly healing experience and an opening experience. And then being able to have these photos that I can now put in my tiles, on my website, and really like flood into my space with this like very clear aesthetic that's just for my voice, just for my vision, just for my business, that really expanded me even more. So my aura is now expanding. And it was sort of like that winter, there was this flowering. And that's when, first of all, I did a new seeding the year for 2021 that was like fabulous. It was really Angela's vision. It was color. It was like, whoa, this is like high touch, beautiful. We are in beauty now. And we've gone a long way since the PDF from the Word doc. But the big thing was the download for Magician's Table. I was just reviewing my journal and I saw in August, I think it was August 31st, in the corner of a page of my journal, I wrote the words, the Magician's Table, but there's nothing else around it that's related to it. So I think just knowing myself, I was like kind of subconsciously like putting a thing into the paper, but giving myself the space to not know what it meant, just like, this is some data that this title is here. Because everything around it's unrelated. But then December 31st, I had the huge like curriculum. I see this space. There's 12 people in a cohort. There's an assistant I can call. He's another reader. It's the 13th reader. And I was seeing Jonathan Coe playing this role. Like, it's a 13th reader. Then I could see their role in the space. Then it was like, and we're going to talk about the elements. They're going to get to workshop with each other. This is a place for emergence to happen. And so I came home and just wrote the whole curriculum on one page of my journal as we moved through the elements twice. And then that whole winter and this is when Saturn is now in Aquarius, squaring Uranus and Taurus. That whole year with Saturn in Aquarius, I was building out the promo and like telling everybody about it. And I did like a webinar where I introduced people to the concept. Come and learn about this concept. It's called the Magician's Table. It's a way of relating to your magical tools. And I was just like speaking its name. And it was like, so I'm only going to have room for 12. If you want this, you need to be filling out the application on this date. When I open this for applications, in the first 12 resident applications are going to be the ones like, this is not about expertise. This is not even about experience. It's about whether your heart and your spirit are resonant with the dream of this container. That's all I want to, that's what I want to see. I want to see you vocalize your commitment to this vision. And I did it. And 12 people arrived within the first 12 hours of that release of that link to the application. It's filled. We have our first crew. And I mean, and it was like $1,200. And I had never charged more than like $350 for anything. So to me at that time, $1,200 was like, there were huge parts of me that didn't believe that that could really happen. No one's even heard of this before. Who am I? But I just so ferociously believed in it. So I gave it a ton of promo time. I gave it like 6-7 weeks to just educate people. Just like, I'm just going to keep speaking this into being. I'm going to speak it into being. I'm going to speak it so much that there's no way you don't feel this. Like, you're going to see it in your mind's eye, because now you're going to hear me talking about it so much. And if you don't want to hear me talking about it, you can go follow someone else. I knew that there were 12, and I just needed to speak it clear enough for them to hear me. And so I did. And they came, and it was sensational. It was a sensational experience. And that's really where this chapter ends, because the magician's table came as like this bubbling, over the top effervescence at the peak of all of that aura building, all of that believing in myself, all of that like creating aesthetics to go with the words, all of that like taking myself seriously, waking up at 4 a.m. to write and like work all day and still have my other job and single parenting. And just like, I believe in this, this must exist. It must move through me. Why would it be here if it wasn't meant to exist? And just like, whoa. Really just showing up. I don't work like that anymore. I got my business to a place that like, I don't work like that anymore. But that aura building year, there was so much passion, you could have just fueled a rocket into outer space. And so much joy at being in my power and in my voice and like just spreading it everywhere, just like spreading it and just like letting it go, germinate beyond me. And letting my name go with it. I mean, that's so frightening. It was frightening, but I did it anyway because I was holding so much space for my own healing at the same time. I was at the same time investing in different teachers, investing in readings, investing in coaches, investing in what do I need to do to support my body in holding all of this aura building. And so I was like holding all that down, just holding it down. Just so impressed with my younger self. Like, wow. Yeah. Yeah, and that's so... one of the things I tell my mentees is like to really trust in the inevitability of what you want to happen, happening. But it's like, you really got to want it. And you really got to be connected to like the life force behind the desire, And I was just deeply connected to my life force energy that was just like becoming this huge cauldron. And that was so strong that there was no way to slow down and get worried and about doubt. I say that, but there are lots of places in these journals where an eclipse, a retrograde was like really, really, really hard for me. My brain chemistry was really, really hard. I was still removing a lot of other people's voices while I was doing this. It wasn't easy, but I did have my passion. So it was like, I just kept humbly asking on my knees, like for support from the cosmos, from the moon, from my guides, and like really ritualizing that in a regular way. So that I could feel myself showing up to my desires, but also feel myself showing up to my desires to alchemize my doubts and my fears and my shame into something creative, into something supportive in the world, into something disruptive in the world. So, that's feeling complete. I'm really excited to be able to talk about aura building, visibility, power, and leadership in a more like formal way in a teaching space coming up. I think I'm going to do something I've never done before, and I'm going to do this Mystics Making Money in Telegram. So it's like a series of voice messages from me that feels really light touch and very me, because I love voice messages. It's very 12th house to leave people voice messages and just let it be asynchronous. And it's summer, so most people don't have as much capacity for like sitting down and being captive audience. So I'm feeling like late July, a 5-day Telegram class. That's just an app that you can download, and then you can have the class channel on it. I think that would be really cool. And it can be so light touch then for everyone that I think it can also be really, really, really affordable and like just such an easy yes for everyone. So how does that feel? How do you feel? Did you like the episode? If you love the episode and you've never left a review, please do. You'll make my day. It's so exciting to get reviews. And I'm looking forward to whenever I come back here next, whenever I feel called. When I woke up this morning, I didn't know I'd be doing this. This is how Moon to Moon has always been put forth, is when I want to. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Wishing you a gorgeous Cancer season.